Hello, everybody. Welcome to Champs Drink Champs. This is just Tayler here tonight. Shelby is out of town in Chicago for work. So lucky her, but you get me tonight. If you are watching on YouTube and it looks like I've been crying, I have not. I'm just really tired. So sorry how I look right now. We're just letting it be. I am wearing a dope ass Twilight shirt though. So, we are just rolling with the punches tonight. Okay, so I have a really great topic for you guys tonight. I always feel so weird when I'm recording by myself. It takes me like a second to get into the groove of things because it feels really weird. I also am not wearing my headphones because I finally got speakers for my computer. So it feels extra weird that I can't hear my voice through my headphones. So if it's taking me a minute to get started, I apologize. Okay, so I have a really great topic for you guys tonight. I had a few questions about your shadow self from the last moon circle and the last moon episode. So I thought no better time than the present to talk about this since this is what we are focusing on this next month. And it's something that I've actually been wanting to talk about for a while, and I just have never taken the time to do it. So yeah, we're doing that tonight. All about your shadow self, all about your shadow side. I think it's a very, very interesting topic, and I'm really excited to dive in and talk about it. So I asked I put up a question box on our Instagram. I had a few questions from there, and then I also had a few questions from people who attended the Moon Circle last month. So sorry, I have horrible allergies tonight. So if my throat's a little scratchy, I apologize, or if I have to pause to cough. So I had some questions that I'm going to answer. We'll just kind of go through all of it. And as always, if you have any other questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them. So the main question that I got is, what is your shadow self? I know if you are into like the metaphysical realm, or if you've been into like self-development, you've probably heard this term a lot, but you've probably never heard anybody explain what it actually means or what it actually is. So the basic definition of your shadow self or your shadow side, the shadow refers to the unconscious and often repressed aspects of a person's personality, their traits, desires, or emotions that we tend to deny or hide because they don't align with our conscious self-image. So that is what a shadow self is, or a shadow side is. It's a very, very simple thing that I think it's overthought a lot to be more than it is. It is a simple thing. It's basically just the side of yourself that you don't show others or that you don't show yourself. So that leads me into the next question. What could be your shadow side? So different personality traits could have different shadow sides. So I have a few examples for you guys. If you consider yourself more of a caregiver, your conscious self-image, so the way that you see yourself, the way that you present yourself to the world, would be a person who sees themselves as compassionate, nurturing, and always there for others. So your shadow side would or could be that you repress feelings of resentment, exhaustion, or selfish desires. Their need to be needed can also mask a hidden fear of abandonment or worthlessness if they aren't caring for others. Sometimes they may become manipulative by making others feel guilty for not appreciating their sacrifices. So if you can consider yourself more of a caregiver, that could be a shadow side of yours. If you consider yourself more of a rebel, what you're presenting to yourself and to others could be someone who provides. Sorry, gosh, reading is hard today, apparently. Someone who prides themselves on being independent, anti-authoritarian, and free-spirited. So your shadow side could be the repressed part, could include a need for acceptance or fear or vulnerability. They may also suppress feelings of insecurity or secretly long for stability while continuing to act rebellious out of fear or being seen as weak. If you consider yourself more of a peacemaker, your self-image would be someone who sees himself as easygoing, diplomatic, and conflict avoidant. So, your shadow side, they may suppress anger, frustration, or their own needs to keep the peace. This could eventually lead to passive aggressiveness or inability to confront important issues directly. This is me. This is definitely part of my shadow side. Yeah, repressing anger, frustration, or your own needs to keep the peace. That's definitely me, definitely working on it. The last example that I'll give you is the achiever. So, what you could be presenting to yourself and the world is someone who identifies as highly successful, goal oriented, and ambitious. So, your shadow side, the hidden side, may include feelings of inadequacy or fear of failure. They may become overly competitive or alienate others in their relentless pursuit of success, masking deeper feelings of insecurity. So those are just a few examples to kind of give you that starting point of how can you figure out what your shadow side is. You can also, if you know your Enneagram number, you can also go into the lovely chat GPT that I use for everything or Google and type in Enneagram 7's shadow side. That could give you some ideas of what your shadow side could be. Your Enneagram is a very, very, very helpful tool. I know Shelby and I talk about it a lot. So if you don't know your Enneagram number, find your Enneagram number and start to explore your shadow side. That is what the moon and the universe is wanting us to do this month. With all this being said, the shadow side sounds scary and sounds bad. It isn't necessarily bad. Acknowledging and integrating it can lead to a fuller understanding of oneself, resulting in more balance and more self-awareness. So when I bring up shadow side or when I do shadow type journal prompts in my moon circle, people get really nervous. They don't like, it's hard to talk about your shadow self. It's hard to confront those things. Sometimes it's even hard to acknowledge those things. So I understand, but it's not anything to be afraid of. It's not anything to run away from. It's not anything that's bad. It's literally a part of you. And so, don't be afraid of it. I know that that's easier said than done. It took me a long, long time to even start to consider the idea of doing shadow work in any way, shape, or form. I was very, very uncomfortable with it, but it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to be fearful of. I think it's actually kind of a really beautiful part of yourself. So I had another question. How can I start to work on my shadow side? This is a very loaded question. I have a list of 6 things for you through this. I will make a post for Instagram this coming week. Just in case you forget about them, or sometimes I talk too fast. So I'm trying really hard to slow down my cadence. I talk really fast and I'm trying to slow it down. So, shadow work involves bringing unconscious aspects of yourself into your conscious awareness. The goal is to not eliminate these hidden parts, but to integrate them into your sense of self in a healthy and constructive way. So, here are a few steps that can help you start to work on your shadow side. Honestly, it took me a minute to find these because if you put in Google, like ways to work on your shadow self, a bunch of journal prompts come up. Sometimes journaling prompts don't work for people. So, like myself, I don't love journal prompts. Like they're all right sometimes, but I'm not like a giant fan. Like every self-development thing that I'm going to do, I want it to be a journal prompt. Like moon circles, yes, I think that they're great. I think they're super useful tool, but I have to be like really in the right state of mind to do journal prompts. So I found all this information on Psychology Today, my favorite website ever. And then I have a few like witchy websites that I pulled some stuff from because this is definitely more of a, in my opinion, it's more of like a non-conventional way of life. Being in the therapy realm, being in school for therapy, a lot of therapists and psychologists do not acknowledge this is a thing, which I think is crazy because it makes perfect sense to me. But a lot of times they don't acknowledge it. This is definitely a more holistic type therapeutic exercise and therapeutic mindset, or a holistic type mindset for you to be in with the shadow side. So, the first step that I have for you is to acknowledge its existence. I know it's really difficult to admit, but this is all about being honest with yourself and knowing that your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that you don't necessarily love about yourself. So really looking into yourself for these things. What are things that drive you crazy about yourself? A good question to ask yourself to explore this, and you can journal this or you can meditate on it. You can think about it during a walk, like however processing works for you. For myself, I spend a lot of time in my car driving. The car is 98% of my processing time. I find such a peace in driving. I find such a peace with loud music. And that's where I have a lot of realizations. It's where I think about a lot of these things. So you don't have to sit with a journal in your hand to think about these things. But a good thing to think about is what traits in others annoy me the most. So think about other people, whether you're close to them or they're more of an acquaintance. What about this person or this group of people annoys you? Do you have those same traits? Let's say being late. If it's really annoying when people are late, are you late? Like why does that annoy you so bad? Are you a late person? Like that would be part of your shadow self, that you're a chronically late person. That used to be me. I used to be late for everything. And not just like 5 or 10 minutes late. I would be like an hour late. Like I was late all the time and I just didn't even care. It honestly wasn't until I went through my yoga training and we had a book that we had to read. It's called The Yamas and the Niyamas. It's a fantastic self-development book. You don't have to be into yoga to read it. It's amazing. But one of the limbs of yoga is respecting time of others, respecting time of yourself. And when I really like thought about that, I was like, oh shit, I am a person that is always late. And like, I don't really care that much about it. Like, yeah, it's annoying, but like, it's kind of whatever to me. And then I realized like, that's actually really rude. And that's actually like a really big sign of disrespect. That's a part of my shadow side that actually really annoys me. And I just pretend like it doesn't. So take your time to ask that. Like, what do other people do that really irritates you? And do you have some of those same traits? And another good question to explore is, are there parts of myself that I am ashamed of or avoid acknowledging? My being late situation, it annoyed the shit out of me when other people were late. I thought it was so rude. I thought it was so annoying. And I was completely ignoring myself doing the exact same thing, but being later than the people that were bugging me. So that was a hard realization for me, but it's a great example of how your shadow side plays into things and how you can notice things in other people that are part of yourself. The second tip is self-reflection. I know I've talked about this a lot in the last few episodes, but spending time in that self-reflection, being quiet, journaling, meditation, walks in nature, however you find your own self-reflection. I know that Shelby finds a lot of it through running. So that's a great time to have some self-reflection spaces that things can come up for you. Yeah, just however you find your self-reflection time, think about these questions. So, another question you can ask yourself is, what situations trigger strong emotional responses in me? Some strong emotions that I really want to point out that are good to acknowledge are anger, jealousy, or shame. Anger, I'm learning, is a very beautiful emotion. I always thought I was bad for being angry. I always thought it was stupid for being angry. And so I would just like bury my anger so deep down inside of me. And then all of a sudden, one day I would just pop off and I would explode. And it would be like this anger coming out of me that I've been holding on to for like the past 2 years. Like it was ridiculous. So, yeah, notice what these situations are that bring up these strong emotions. Anger is probably the biggest one that you can notice. If you are in a situation and you just feel real angry, Why are you feeling angry? What is the situation? Take a moment to explore that. Again, I think I say this in almost every episode. I use my phone notes for everything. You have your phone in your pocket all the time. If you are in a situation and a strong emotion comes up and you don't have time to deal with it, then make a note of it, make a note what the situation is, make a note what the emotion is, come back to it to reflect on it. Another good self-reflection question is, how do I behave when I'm stressed or frustrated? What does that say about my shadow? Again, I'll use myself as an example because I'm a vulnerable ass bitch. I'm kind of an asshole when I'm frustrated. Definitely something that I'm working on, but again, like the peacekeeper, once I get to that point of bubbling though, I'm done. Like I'm done with the peace. I'm done with it. I don't even care. I can be kind of an asshole. I can be very passive aggressive. I can be like, just make really rude comments, I guess. Like, okay, for example, if Tony hasn't done the dishes in 2 weeks and I'm doing the dishes and I would be doing the dishes and be like, wow, it sure would be fucking nice if someone else would do the dishes in this household. I wasn't the only one who ate dinner. Like things like that, which I think that's an asshole. Other people may think that that's not an asshole. But yeah, that says a lot about my shadow side and a lot about what I'm feeling inside that I don't know how to express how I'm feeling. So, those are some really good things to do some self reflection on. Number 3, observe emotional reactions. Pay attention to these intense emotional reactions, particularly negative ones like anger, envy, or judgment. These are often signals that your shadow is being triggered. If someone or something deeply irritates you, it may reflect an aspect of your shadow that you haven't acknowledged in yourself. I think that that's point blank. I don't think I need to elaborate on that one anymore. Don't ignore your emotions. Don't ignore your emotions. I guess I do need to elaborate, but I see a lot of people every single day at work who are ignoring their emotions. A lot of the time, especially in yoga, it's sadness and pain. That those emotions have to come out somewhere. They can't just stay inside of you forever. I recently got a question, what is the point of working through trauma? What is the point of working through your shadow side? What is the point? Like it seems stressful. The point is, your body holds on to it. Whether you think it or not, your body holds on to it. At some point, this is going to come out. How it's going to come out, I don't know. It could come out as pain in your body. It could come out as you being an angry person. It could come out as tears. It could come out as you being a dick. It could come out as you having an affair. It could come out and you binge eating. Like there's so many different ways that your emotions can come out if you don't acknowledge what they are. It's also just not healthy for your brain to not acknowledge how you are feeling. Like if you're in a situation and you're uncomfortable, what is making you uncomfortable? What are you feeling that's making you uncomfortable? Are you angry at this moment? Are you sad at this moment? Is somebody around you looking from someone around you looking like somebody from your past who makes you uncomfortable? Like, what emotions are you feeling? Why are you feeling those emotions? Why are you feeling that emotion in this moment? What are you doing in this moment? What are you thinking about in this moment that caused this to happen? There's so many things that emotions can tell you. There's so many things that emotions can do for you, and ignoring them is not the right answer. It really isn't. And I mean, this is what all my yoga is how your body holds on to it. Let's use weight as an example because I'm in a stage that I'm losing a lot of weight right now. And all of a sudden, I haven't really changed much in the grand scheme of things, but all of a sudden I'm losing a lot of weight. Like, hi guys, I just put on some pants today that haven't fit me in 2 years and they fit me perfect. And that was really exciting for me because you guys have heard my whole journey of trying to lose weight. I'm really dealing with a lot of shit that has come up in therapy. I'm really mending a lot of wounds. I'm really focusing on that healing aspect of my life. I'm really making good choices about my life. Um, and I couldn't do that if I was holding on to the emotions. I couldn't do it. And I genuinely think that a lot of my weight gain was pain and sadness and anger and frustration and all of those quote unquote negative emotions. I really think that's what my weight was, because the second I started opening up that Pandora's box and really getting into the root of the things and dealing with them head on, all of a sudden weight started falling off. So, I mean, some people will be skeptics and be like, oh, I don't know. Like, maybe it's because you're doing this, or maybe it's because you're doing this. Maybe that contributes to it. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it has nothing to do with me opening this Pandora's box, but I sure know that I feel better. I sure know that I physically feel lighter now that I've opened this box and started working through these things, even though it's hard. So, really, ignoring your emotions, it's not going to get anywhere. It's not going to get you anywhere. That energy has to go somewhere, and it will either go into your psyche, or it will go into your physical body, or it will do both. So I mean, I could go on about this subject forever. If you really want to dive in, I know I've recommended this book before, but The Body Keeps a Score is incredible about explaining scientifically how trauma and emotions store themselves in your body. Shelby also got me a book for Christmas. It's called The Secret Language of Your Body. And it's kind of like a dictionary. And you go to a body part that you're having a problem with, and it will tell you emotionally what you're feeling. So let me grab it so I can give you guys an example. Okay, I'm just going to open up to a random page, and we're going to say, let's do ovarian cysts. That's what I opened up to. So, what it says is holding on to old hurts from men and pain from previous mental, emotional, or physical abuse, not feeling good enough, rejecting your femininity, problems with fertility, like wanting a child or more children and being unable to have them, hiding your sadness and disappointment, feeling lonely and unloved, conflict with your mother, sister, close female relative, or friend. So that's kind of an example of what this book is. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll hold it up to the camera, but it's called The Secret Language of Your Body. I use this book so much. Any little thing that I'm feeling, I'm like, I'm just going to look that up and see what it says. And actually, every single time it's been right, how I've been feeling emotionally or what I'm going through in my life. So even with that one, it's funny that I opened up to that book, because again, this is going to be me being really vulnerable. But I just had a two massive ovarian cysts. On my left side ovary, it was 7.1 is it centimeters? I don't know. 7.1. And then on my right side, it was a 5.2. Like, they were massive on the ultrasound. Like, they were way bigger than my actual ovaries. Extremely painful, very uncomfortable. Part of the Pandora's box that I opened up was dealing with my infertility issues. And so the fact that I opened up to that ovarian cyst page, and one of the biggest things it says is about not being able to have kids or infertility, always is spot on. This book has always been spot on. Your body holds on to pain. It does. And yeah, I'm going on a rant now, but yeah, that I was like, oh, I didn't have anything to say about that. I actually spent 20 minutes on it. It's fine. Okay, number 4, we talk about this every single episode, but therapy. I feel like therapy naturally helps your shadow side come to the surface, plain and simple. Especially if you're seeing a more holistic type therapist, they will be trained in ways to help you understand and see your shadow. I don't really know how to find a more holistic type therapist. Honestly, for mine, I just asked him, like, how do you give therapy? Like, what are your views? Like, can you kind of explain to me a little bit about your therapeutic approach? And it aligned really well for him and I. And so, yeah, I would just like straight up ask. And I've also, like, we've talked a lot about like crystals. For example, I have an anxiety crystal bracelet that I always wear. And one day I was having a really intense session and the bracelet literally broke and like crystals flew everywhere. And I was like, well, those crystals were done. And he's like, what do you mean? And I explained crystals to him and now he has crystals in his office. So just having that line of communication open that you're more into holistic type approaches would be really helpful, because your therapist will know what to do with that if you kind of press and ask questions and kind of explain what you're looking for. Number 5, which I feel like I'm doing great during this podcast episode. This is what happens when I record alone. Thanks a lot, Shelby. Embrace vulnerability. Shadow work requires being honest with yourself about your insecurities, weaknesses, and flaws. This means facing uncomfortable truths and being open to feeling vulnerable. This process is about self-acceptance, not self-judgment. So you can make a list of things about yourself that you struggle to accept. So whatever that may be, let's just use my being late as an example. Make a list. Acknowledge that that's something that I want to work on. Choose one of the things that you write down and practice self-compassion towards it. And always reminding yourself that these imperfections are part of being human. You're not going to be perfect. Guess what? Sometimes I'm still late. Like, it drives me nuts, but sometimes it just happens. You're not going to be perfect in this life. You're just not, but you can practice a lot of self-compassion towards yourself about the shadow side of you. And if you make a list of things that you struggle to accept about yourself, it makes it just easier to see it all and then dial in on one thing that you're wanting to work on. Okay, the last tip is practice acceptance and forgiveness. Shadow work is not about fixing yourself. It's about integrating all parts of yourself, both light and dark. Practice accepting the less flattering parts of your personality without judgment. Forgive yourself for past mistakes. Understanding and acknowledging these parts is key to personal growth. I always say, too, light cannot have dark, dark cannot have light. If you look at the yin yang symbol, it is perfectly together, light and dark. You are going to have dark parts of yourself. You are going to have light, beautiful, sunshiny parts of yourself. It's just the way that life is. There's nothing wrong with the dark parts of you. Unless you're like a murderer or a child molester or something, there's nothing wrong with the dark parts of you. It is a perfectly normal thing of life. So don't run away from it. Accept and forgive yourself for past mistakes. Accept and forgive yourself for whatever your shadow side is. Nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to run away from. The last question that I'll answer is, how do you integrate your shadow work? I loved this question. Sorry, I'm reading my notes. I took very detailed notes for this topic, if you cannot tell. Okay, so accepting, understanding, and transforming the parts of yourself that you may have previously repressed or denied. Rather than pushing these traits away, the goal is to recognize them as part of your whole self and use that awareness to grow. Always focus on self-compassion. So I think that that's the biggest thing with integrating the shadow work. Take the time for self-reflection. Take the time to allow compassion towards yourself. Take the time to allow yourself to release what you need to release. My moon circles are really great places to release things. Exercise is a really great way to release things. Crying is a really great way to release things. Getting together with your girlfriends and laughing. Laughing is a beautiful, sunshine, happy, light way to release negative energy. I cannot tell you how many times I've been having a bad week or a bad day or something real shitty happening in my life. And I get together with my girlfriends and we laugh all night long. And I feel way better the next day. Put on a funny movie, put on a funny TV show, like whatever makes you laugh, allow yourself to laugh. That will be a really beautiful way to get rid of energy that you are ready to release. Yoga is a great way. Of course, I had to mention yoga, but truly it is a great way to connect yourself to your body, to connect yourself to your breath. That helps you release it. The reason why yoga is so great for trauma and all the things is because you're really connecting your brain to your body, your thoughts to your body. You're noticing different areas in your body that could be holding on to stuff, and you're using the breath to help release that. You're using your mind to help acknowledge that. Even a lot of the times, yoga studios don't allow cell phones. And so that's a huge distraction that we all have, that I use all the time to distract me. And when I'm put in the situation that I don't have that, a lot of things come up for me. A lot of things need me to pause, connect, and release. So that's why yoga is so good for you, because you are accessing different parts of your body and holding places that you don't usually hold. Let's use our hamstrings as an example. You use your hamstrings a lot. You use them to walk, you use them to run, you use them on the bike. A lot of the times you use them in weight exercises like strength training, but you don't ever really stretch them unless you actively make the conscious choice to stretch them. Holding a pose like a forward fold where you just reach down to touch your toes is great for your hamstrings, and you are holding it, you're focusing on that area. That's allowing whatever is there, whether it's lactic acid or if it's trauma, it's allowing it to be released from the muscle. As you stretch the muscle, it almost acts like a rag that is kind of like wringing itself out of whatever's holding on to that space. And when you're holding this pose, when you're reaching over, touching your toes, you're obviously breathing. And when you take that exhale, that releases that energy. So that's a very simple way that yoga helps you release, and it helps you connect. It helps you with so many things. So there is a reason why I harp on it so much, because it is a great way that you can release. It is a great way that you can pause, reflect, whatever you need to do on your mat. It's a great space to do it. I also just read a book. It's called No Bad Parts. I'll also post that on our Instagram. Fantastic book. It's written by a psychologist, and he explains different parts of you and how there's none of them are bad. A lot of therapists now are getting trained in his method, and they are doing their therapy session is parts work. I think it's beautiful. It goes in depth about addicts and the parts of them that are addicts. And it goes into trauma. It goes into so many things. It's a very beautiful book. There's meditations throughout it. There's journaling throughout it. It's called No Bad Parts. I will link it on our Instagram. Fantastic book if you are trying to understand the different aspects of yourself. I really cannot recommend that book enough. So I will just leave this episode with this. Shadow work is a part of all of us. It isn't anything to be ashamed of or scared of. This is a very well-rounded way to work on your self-development, work through traumas, and fully and truly love yourself. We all need a little bit more self-love. You can't fully love yourself if you don't love the dark parts of you. If you don't love the shadow self of you, you can't fully love yourself. So this is not the easiest work in the entire world. It's really hard to look at yourself and see and acknowledge the parts of yourself that you don't love. And it's really hard to bring those parts to light to yourself and to other people. But I promise you, you can't fully love yourself if you don't do this work. So I will just leave the episode at that. We're a shorter episode tonight, but that's okay. It's a lot of information in here. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. This was, if you didn't listen to the moon episode last week, go back and listen to that. The moon and the universe is asking us to focus on this part of ourselves this month. So it's a great time because you have the universe's support, you have the other side's support, you have your angel support, because this is what we are supposed to be doing at this point. I'm doing this work. I'm going to talk Shelby into doing this work. We're all going to be doing this work, and it's going to be really beautiful next month when the new full moon comes. And I don't know what it's going to bring yet. I have no idea what that full moon's going to bring, but it's just really beautiful when you start to align yourself with what the universe is, the energy that the universe is bringing to you. So please take the time this month to just answer or think about, pray about, meditate about one of these questions, acknowledge one little part of you, and just see what happens. Just see what happens. There's no harm in seeing what happens and acknowledging these things. So I will leave it at that. Please reach out with any questions and make sure that you're following us on Instagram. Yeah, love you. It's so hard recording by myself. I don't know how people have podcasts that are all by themselves, because maybe it's because like I started with two other people and like now there's just one other person, but we don't do silent. We don't do solo episodes a lot. So it's fine. So anyways, okay. Love you guys so much. Bye.